Wednesday. I was getting a little bit of sun, so it's a little bit later today. I had to get a new shampoo and conditioner, so my hair looks a mess, and we are just going to ignore that. Today we are doing a couple short stories out of the Grimm's fairy tales. Yesterday we did Cinderella. I think today's chunk of them includes Red Riding Hood. So we will see how far we get. And let's start. The first one today is Mother Hulda. A widow had 2 daughters. One was pretty and industrious, the other was ugly and lazy. And as the ugly one was her own daughter, she loved her much the best, and the pretty one was made to do all the housework and be the drudge of the house. Every day the poor girl had to sit by a well on the high road and spin until her fingers bled. Now it happened once that as the spindle was bloody, she dipped it into the well to wash it, but it slipped out of her hand and fell in. Then she began to cry and ran to her stepmother and told her of her misfortune. And her stepmother scolded her without mercy and said in her rage, "As you have left the spindle fall in, you must go and fetch it out again." Then the girl went back again to the well, not knowing what to do, and in the despair of her heart she jumped down into the well the same way the spindle had gone. After that she knew nothing, and when she came to herself she was in a beautiful meadow, and the sun was shining on the flowers that grew round her. And she walked on through the meadow until she came to a baker's oven that was full of bread, and the bread called out to her, "Oh, take me out, or I shall burn. I am baked enough already." Then she drew near, and with the baker's peel she took out all the loaves one after the other. And she went further on till she came to a tree weighed down with apples, and it called out to her, "Oh, shake me, we apples are all of us ripe." Happy Red Rose Day. That's very sweet. Then she shook the tree until the apples fell like rain, and she shook until there were no more to fall, and when she had gathered them together in a heap, she went on further. At last she came to a little house, and an old woman was peeping out of it, but she had such great teeth that the girl was terrified and about to run away, only the old woman called her back. "What are you afraid of, my dear child? Come and live with me, and if you do the housework well and orderly, things shall go well with you. You must take great pains to make my bed well and shake it up thoroughly, so that the feathers fly about, and when in the world it snows... You must take great pains to make my bed well and shake it up thoroughly, so that the feathers fly about, and then in the world it snows, for I am Mother Hulda." As the old woman spoke so kindly, the girl took courage, consented, and went to her work. She did everything to the old woman's satisfaction and shook the bed with such a will that the feathers flew about like snowflakes. And so she led a good life, had never a cross word, but boiled and roast meat every day. When she had lived a long time with Mother Hulda, she began to feel sad, not knowing herself what ailed her. At last she began to think she must be homesick, and although she was 1,000 times better off than at home where she was, yet she had a great longing to go home. At last she said to her mistress, "I am homesick, and although I am very well off here, I cannot stay longer. I must go back to my own home." Mother Hulda answered, "It pleases me well that you should wish to go home, and as you have served me faithfully, I will undertake to send you there." She took her by the hand and led her to a large door standing open, and as she was passing through it, there fell upon her a heavy shower of gold, and the gold hung all over her so that she was covered with it. "Good morning. All this is yours because you have been so industrious," said Mother Hulda. And besides that, she returned to her spindle the very same that she had... "All this is yours because you have been so industrious," said Mother Hulda. And, besides that, she returned to her spindle, the very same that she had dropped in the well. And then the door was shut again, and the girl found herself back again in the world, not far from her mother's house. And as she passed through the yard, the cock stood on top of the well and cried, "Cock-a-doodle-doo, our golden girl has come home too." Then she went in to her mother, and as she had returned covered with gold, she was well received. So the girl related all her history, and what had happened to her, and when the mother heard how she came to have such great riches, she began to wish that her ugly and idle daughter might have the same good fortune. So she sent her to sit by the well and spin, and in order to make her spindle bloody, she put her hand into the thorn hedge. Then she threw the spindle into the well and jumped in herself. She found herself, like her sister, in the beautiful meadow, and followed the same path, and when she came to the baker's oven, the bread cried out, "Oh, take me out, or I shall burn. I am quite done already." But the lazy bones answered, "I have no desire to black my hands," and went on further. Soon she came to the apple tree, who called out, "Oh, shake me, we apples are all of us ripe." But she answered, "That is all very fine. Suppose one of you should fall on my head," and went on further. When she came to Mother Hulda's house, she did not feel afraid, as she knew beforehand of her great teeth, and entered into her service at once. The first day she put her hand well to the work, and was industrious, and did everything Mother Hulda bade her, because of the gold she expected. But the second day she began to be idle, and the third day still more so that she would not get up in the morning. Neither did she make Mother Hulda's bed as it ought to have been made, and did not shake it for the feathers to fly about. so that Mother Hulda soon grew tired of her and gave her warning, at which the lazy thing was well pleased, and thought that now the shower of gold was coming. So Mother Hulda led her to the door, and as she stood in the doorway, instead of the shower of gold, a great kettle full of pitch was emptied over her. "That is the reward for your service," said Mother Hulda, and shut the door. So the lazy girl came home all covered in pitch, and the cock on the top of the well, seeing her, cried, "Cock-a-doodle-doo, our dirty girl has come home too." And the pitch remained sticking to her fast, and never, as long as she lived, could it be got off. Yeah. So this one is called Little Red Cap, which I think we all know is Little Red Riding Hood. There was once a sweet little maid, much beloved by everybody, but most of all by her grandmother, who never knew how to make enough of her. Once she sent her a little cap of red velvet, and as it was very becoming to her, and she never wore anything else, people called her Little Red Cap. One day her mother said to her, "Come, Little Red Cap, here are some cakes and a flask of wine for you to take to your grandmother. She is weak and ill, and they will do her good. Make haste and start before it grows hot, and walk properly and nicely, and don't run, or you might fall and break the flask of wine, and there would be none left for grandmother. And when you go into her room, don't forget to say, 'Good morning,' instead of staring about you." "I will be sure to take care," said Little Red Cap to her mother, and gave her hand upon it. Now the grandmother lived away in the wood, half an hour's walk from the village, and when Little Red Cap had reached the wood, she met the wolf, but as she did not know what a bad sort of animal he was, she did not feel frightened. "Good day, Little Red Cap," said he. "Thank you kindly, Wolf," answered she. "Where are you going so early, Little Red Cap?" "To my grandmother's." "What are you carrying under your apron?" "Cakes and wine. We baked yesterday, and my grandmother is very weak and ill, so they will do her good and strengthen her." "Where does your grandmother live, Little Red Cap?" "A quarter of an hour's walk from here. Her house stands beneath the 3 oak trees, and you may know it well by the hazel bushes," said Little Red Cap. The wolf thought to himself, "That tender young thing would be a delicious morsel and would taste better than the cold one. I must manage somehow to get both of them." Then he walked by Little Red Cap a little while and said, "Little Red Cap, just look at the pretty flowers that are growing all round you, and I don't think you are listening to the song of the birds. You are posing along just as if you were going to school, and it is so delightful out here in the wood." Little Red Cap glanced round her, and when she saw the sunbeams darting here and there through the trees, and lovely flowers everywhere, she thought to herself, "If I were to take a fresh nosegay to my grandmother, she would be very pleased, and it is so early in the day that I shall reach her in plenty of time." So she ran about in the wood, looking for flowers. And as she picked one, she saw a still prettier one a little further off, and so she went further and further into the wood. But the wolf went straight to the grandmother's house and knocked at the door. "Who is there?" cried the grandmother. "Little Red Cap," he answered, "and I have brought you some cake and wine. Please open the door." "Lift the latch," cried the grandmother. "I am too feeble to get up." So the wolf lifted the latch, and the door flew open, and he fell on the grandmother and ate her up without saying a word. He's in the other room. Yeah. Then he drew on her clothes, put on her cap, lay down on her bed, and drew the curtains. Little Red Cap was all this time running about among the flowers, and when she had gathered as many as she could, she remembered her grandmother and set off to go to her. She was surprised to find the door standing open, and when she came inside, she felt very strange and thought to herself, "Oh dear, how uncomfortable I feel, and I was so glad this morning to go to my grandmother." "Hi." And when she said good morning, there was no answer. Then she went up to the bed and drew back the curtains. There lay the grandmother with her cap pulled over her eyes so that she looked very odd. I washed my hair, so maybe that has something to do with it. "Oh, grandmother, what large ears you have got. The better to hear you with." "Oh, grandmother, what great eyes you have got. The better to see with." "Oh, grandmother, what large hands you have got. The better take hold of you with." "But grandmother, what a terrible large mouth you have got. The better to devour you." And no sooner had the wolf said it than he made one bound from the bed and swallowed up poor Little Red Cap. Then the wolf, having satisfied his hunger, laid down again in the bed, went to sleep, and began to snore loudly. The huntsman heard him as he was passing by the house and thought, "How that old woman snores! I had better see if there is anything the matter with her." Then he went into the room and walked up to the bed and saw the wolf lying there. "At last I find you, you old sinner," said he. "I've been looking for you a long time." He then made up his mind that the wolf had swallowed the grandmother whole, and that she might yet be saved. So he did not fire, but took a pair of shears and began to slit up the wolf's body. When he made a few snips, Little Red Cap appeared, and after a few more snips she jumped out and cried, "Oh dear, how frightened I have been! It is so dark inside the wolf." And then it came out the old grandmother, still living and breathing. But Little Red Cap went and quickly fetched some large stones, with which she filled the wolf's body, so that when he waked up and he was going to rush away, the stones were so heavy that he sank down and fell dead. They were all three very pleased. The huntsman took off the wolf's skin and carried it home. The grandmother ate the cakes and drank the wine and held up her head again, and Little Redcap said to herself that she would never more stray about in the woods alone, but would mind what her mother told her. It must also be related how a few days afterwards, when Little Redcap was again taking cakes to her grandmother, another wolf spoke to her and wanted to tempt her to leave the path. But she was on her guard and went straight on her way and told her grandmother how the wolf had met her and wished her good day, but had looked so wicked about the eyes that she thought if it had not been on the high road, he would have devoured her. "Come," said the grandmother, "we will shut the door so that he may not get in." Soon after came the wolf knocking at the door and calling out, "Open the door, grandmother. I am Little Redcap, bringing you cakes." But they remained still and did not open the door. After that, the wolf slunk by the house and got at last upon the roof to wait until Little Redcap should return home in the evening, that he meant to spring down upon her and devour her in the darkness. But the grandmother discovered his plot. Now there stood before the house a great stone trough, and the grandmother said to the child, "Little Redcap, I was boiling sausages yesterday, so take the bucket and carry away the water they were boiled in, and pour it into the trough." And Little Redcap did so until the great trough was quite full. When the smell of the sausages reached the nose of the wolf, he snuffed it up and looked around, and stretched out his neck so far that he lost his balance and began to slip, and he slipped down off the roof straight into the great trough and was drowned. Then Little Redcap went cheerfully home and came to no harm. Next one is called The Bremen Town Musicians. There was once an ass whose master had made him carry sacks to the mill for many a long year, but whose strength began at last to fail, so that each day as it came found him less capable of work. Then his master began to think of turning him out, but the ass, guessing that something was in the wind that boded him no good, ran away, taking the road to Bremen, for there he thought he might get an engagement as town musician. When he had gone a little way, he found a hound lying by the side of the road, panting, as if he had run a long way. "Now hold fast, what are you doing so out of breath?" said the ass. "Oh dear," said the dog, "now I am old, I get weaker every day, and can do no good in the hunt. So, as my master was going to have me killed, I have made my escape. But now, how am I to gain a living?" "I will tell you what," said the ass. "I am going to Bremen to become town musician. You may as well go with me, and take up music too. I can play the lute, and you can beat the drum." And the dog consented, and they walked on together. It was not long before they came to a cat sitting in the road, looking as dismal as 3 wet days. "Now then, what is the matter with you, old shaver?" said the ass. "I should like to know who would be cheerful when his neck is in danger," answered the cat. "Now that I am old, my teeth are getting blunt, and I would rather sit by the oven and purr than run about after mice. And my mistress wanted to drown me, so I took myself off. But good advice is scarce, and I do not know what is to become of me." "Go with us to Bremen," said the ass, "and become town musician. You understand serenading." The cat thought well of the idea, and went with him accordingly. After that, the 3 travelers passed by a yard, and a cock was perched on the gate, crowing with all his might. "Your cries are enough to pierce bone and marrow," said the ass. "What is the matter?" "I have foretold good weather for Lady Day, so that all the shirts may be washed and dried. And now, on Sunday morning, company is coming, and the mistress has told the cook that I must be made into soup. And this evening my neck is to be wrung, so that I am crowing with all my might while I can." "You had much better go with us, Chanticleer," said the ass. "We are going to Bremen. At any rate, that will be better than dying. You have a powerful voice, and when we are all performing together, it will have a very good effect." So the cock consented, and they went on all 4 together. But Bremen was too far off to be reached in one day, and towards evening they came to a wood, where they determined to pass the night. The ass and the dog lay down under a large tree, the cat got up amongst the branches, and the cock flew up to the top, as that was the safest place for him. Before he went to sleep, he looked all round him to the 4 points of the compass, and perceived in the distance a little light shining, and he called to his companions that there must be a house not far off, as far as he could see a light. So the ass said, "We had better get up and go there, for these are uncomfortable quarters." Yeah. Of course, no problem. Yeah, my hours for doing this have been kind of all over the place lately. Going to Germany to become a musician is crazy. It is. I just realized I followed you in November, so I've been calling you back for 7 months now. You have. Yes. The dog began to fancy a few bones, not quite bare, would do him good. And they all set off in the direction of the light, and it grew larger and brighter until at last it led them to a robber's house, all lighted up. The ass, being the biggest, went up to the window and looked in. "Well, what do you see?" said the dog. "What do I see?" answered the ass. Here is a table set out with splendid eatables and drinkables, and robbers sitting at it and making themselves very comfortable." "That would just suit us," said the cock. Yes, indeed. I wish we were there, said the ass. Then they consulted together how it should be managed so as to get the robbers out of the house, and at last they hit on a plan. The ass was to place his forefeet on the windowsill, the dog was to get on the ass's back, and the cat on top of the dog, and lastly the cock was to fly up and perch on the cat's head. When that was done, at a given signal they all began to perform their music. The ass brayed, the dog barked, the cat mewed, and the cock crowed. Then they burst through into the room, breaking all the panes of glass. The robbers fled at the dreadful sound. They thought it was some goblin, and fled to the wood in the utmost terror. Then the 4 companions sat down to table, made free with the remains of the meal, and feasted as if they had been hungry for a month. And when they had finished, they put out the lights, and each sought out a sleeping place to suit his nature and habits. The ass laid himself down outside on the dunghill, the dog beside the door, the cat on the hearth by the warm ashes, and the cock settled himself in the cock loft. And as they were all tired with their long journey, they soon fell fast asleep. When midnight drew near and the robbers from afar saw that no light was burning, and that everything appeared quiet, their captain said to them that he thought that they had run away without reason, telling one of them to go and do recon. I don't know how to pronounce that one. So when one of them went and found everything quite quiet, he went into the kitchen to strike a light, and taking the glowing fiery eyes of the cat for burning coals, he held a match to them in order to kindle it. But the cat, not seeing the joke, flew into his face, spitting and scratching. Then he cried out in terror and ran to get out the back door, but the dog, who was laying there, ran at him and bit his leg. And as he was rushing through the yard by the dunghill, the ass struck out and gave him a great kick with his hind foot. And the cock, who had been wakened with the noise, felt quite brisk and cried out, "Cock-a-doodle-doo." Then the robber got back as well as he could to his captain and said, "Oh dear, in that house there is a gruesome witch, and I fell to a breath and her long nails in my face. And by the door there stands a man who stabbed me in the leg with his knife, and in the yard there lies a black spectre who beat me with his wooden club. And above, on the roof, there sits the justice, who cried, 'Bring that rogue here!' And so I ran away from the place as fast as I could." From that time forward, the robbers never ventured to that house, and the 4 Bremen town musicians found themselves so well off as they were that they stayed. And the person who last related this tale is still living, as you see. The writer was thinking of something else. Well, yeah, I think just at the time, that's what they were called. Schmutz on my face. Next is called Prudent Hans. One day, Hans's mother said, "Where are you going, Hans?" Hans answered, "To Grethel's, mother." "Manage well, Hans." "All right. Goodbye, mother." "Goodbye, Hans." Then Hans came to Grethel's. "Good morning, Grethel." I know. It's interesting that so many of these are the base for Disney movies. Oh, okay. I don't like that one. Good morning, Grethel. "Good morning, Hans. What have you brought me today?" "I have brought nothing, but I want something." So Grethel gave Hans a needle, and then he said, "Goodbye, Grethel." And she said, "Goodbye, Hans." Hans carried the needle away with him and stuck it in a hay cart that was going along, and he followed it home. Yeah. That's super gross. Sorry. Yeah. Okay, I just banned someone for the first time on... Normally I wait until the stream is done because I didn't know if I could do it at the same time. But I did it! Fuck that guy. Okay. So he stuck a needle in a hay cart. "Good evening, mother." "Good evening, Hans. Where have you been?" "To Grethel's, mother." "What did you take her?" "I took nothing, but I brought away something." "What did Grethel give you?" "A needle, mother." "What did you do with it, Hans?" "Stuck it in the hay cart." "That was very stupid of you, Hans. You should have stuck it in your sleeve." "All right, mother. I'll do better next time." When next time came, Hans's mother said, "Where are you going, Hans?" "To Grethel's, mother." "Manage well, Hans." "All right. Goodbye, mother." "Goodbye, Hans." Then Hans came to Grethel. "Good morning, Grethel." "Good morning, Hans. What have you brought me today?" "I have brought nothing, but I want something." So Grethel gave Hans a knife, and he said, "Goodbye, Grethel." And she said, "Goodbye, Hans." Hans took the knife away with him and stuck it in his sleeve and went home. "Good evening, mother." "Good evening, Hans. Where have you been?" "To Grethel's." "What did you take her?" "I took nothing, but I brought away something." "What did Grethel give you, Hans?" "A knife, mother." "What did you do with it, Hans?" Stuck it in my sleeve, Mother. That was very stupid of you, Hans. You should have put it in your pocket. All right, Mother. I'll do better next time. When next time came, Hans's mother said, Where to, Hans? To Grethel's, Mother. Manage well, Hans. All right, goodbye, Mother. Goodbye, Hans. So Hans came to Grethel's. Good morning, Grethel. Good morning, Hans. What have you brought me today? I've brought nothing, but I want to take away something. So Grethel gave Hans a young goat. Then he said, Goodbye, Grethel. And she said, Goodbye, Hans. So Hans carried off the goat, tied its legs together, and put it in his pocket, and by the time he got home, it was suffocated. Good evening, Mother. Good evening, Hans. Where have you been? To Grethel's, Mother. What did you take her, Hans? I took nothing, but I brought away something. What did Grethel give you, Hans? A goat, Mother. What did you do with it, Hans? Put it in my pocket, Mother. That was very stupid of you, Hans. You should have tied a cord round its neck and led it home. All right, Mother. I'll do better next time. Then when next time came, Hans's mother said, Where to, Hans? To Grethel's, Mother. Manage well, Hans. All right, goodbye, Mother. Goodbye, Hans. Then Hans came to Grethel's. Good morning, Grethel. Good morning, Hans. What have you brought me today? I've brought nothing, but I want to take away something. Fucking Hans has taken all of Grethel's stuff. So Grethel gave Hans a piece of bacon. Then he said, Goodbye, Grethel. And she said, Goodbye, Hans. Hans took the bacon, tied a string round it, and dragged it after him on his way home, and the dogs came and ate it up, so that when he got home, he had the string in his hand and nothing at the other end of it. Good evening, Mother. Good evening, Hans. Where have you been? To Grethel's, Mother. What did you take her, Hans? I took her nothing, but I brought away something. What did Grethel give you, Hans? A piece of bacon, Mother. What did you do with it, Hans? Take a shot every time I say Hans and Grethel. What did you do with it, Hans? Tied a piece of string to it, led it home, but the dogs ate it, Mother. It was very stupid of you, Hans. You ought to have carried it on your head. All right, I'll do better next time, Mother. When next time came, where to, Hans? To Grethel's, Mother. Manage well, Hans. All right, goodbye, Mother. Goodbye, Hans. Then Hans came to Grethel's. Good morning, Grethel. Good morning, Hans. What have you brought me? I have brought nothing, but I want to take away something. So Grethel gave Hans a calf. 2 guesses as to where this is going. Blah, 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 blah. But I've brought something away. What did you do with the calf, Hans? I carried it on my head. Oh, just kidding. We missed some stuff. Okay. I've brought nothing, but I want to take away something. So Grethel gave Hans a calf. Goodbye, Grethel. Goodbye, Hans. Hans took the calf, set it on his head, and carried it home, and the calf scratched his face. Good evening, Mother. Good evening, Hans. Where have you been? To Grethel's, Mother. What did you take her? I took nothing, but I brought away something. What did Grethel give you, Hans? A calf, Mother. What did you do with the calf, Hans? I carried it home on my head, but it scratched my face. That was very stupid of you, Hans. You ought to have led home the calf and tied it to the manger. All right, I'll do better next time, Mother. Hi. When the time came, where to, Hans? To Grethel's, Mother. Manage well, Hans. All right, Mother. Goodbye. Goodbye, Hans. Then Hans came to Grethel's. Good morning, Grethel. Good morning, Hans. What have you brought me today? She keeps asking. I don't think he's ever going to bring her anything. I have brought nothing, but I want to take away something. Then Grethel said to Hans, You shall take away me. Then Hans took Grethel, tied a rope round her neck, and led her home, and fastened her up to the manger, and went to his mother. Good evening, Mother. Good evening, Hans. Where have you been? To Grethel's, Mother. What did you take her, Hans? Nothing, Mother. What did Grethel give you, Hans? Nothing but herself, Mother. Where have you left Grethel, Hans? I led her home with a rope, tied her up to the manger to eat hay, Mother. It was very stupid of you, Hans. You should have cast sheep's eyes at her. All right, Mother. I'll do better next time. Then Hans went into the stable, and taking all the eyes out of the sheep, he threw them in Grethel's face. Then Grethel was angry, and getting loose, she ran away and became the bride of another. Others of children's books to know the concepts of prayer. Yeah, I know. That story was Prudent Hans. Easily, I would say, one of the more ridiculous ones. I think we have time for one more. It is called Clever Else. There was once a man who had a daughter who was called Clever Else, and when she was grown up, her father said she must be married, and her mother said, yes, if we could only find someone that she would consent to have. At last, one came from a distance, and his name was Hans. From the last one? From the last one, maybe? Clever Hans? At last one came from a distance, and his name was Hans, and when he proposed to her, he made it a condition that clever Else should be very careful as well. "Oh," said the father, "she does not want for brains." "No, indeed," said the mother. "She can see the wind coming up the street and hear the flies cough." "Well," said Hans, "if she does not turn out to be careful too, I will not have her." Now when they were all seated at table and had well eaten, the mother said, "Else, go into the cellar and draw some beer." Then clever Else took down the jug from the hook in the wall, and as she was on her way to the cellar, she rattled the lid up and down so as to pass away the time. When she got there, she took a stool and stood it in front of the cask so that she need not stoop and make her back ache with needless trouble. Then she put the jug under the tap and turned it, and while the beer was running, in order that her eyes should not be idle, she glanced hither and thither, and finally caught sight of a pickaxe that the workman had left sticking in the ceiling just above her head. Grimm Cinematic Universe, yeah, really. Then clever Else began to cry, for she thought, "If I marry Hans and we have a child, and it grows big, and we send it into the cellar to draw beer, that pickaxe might fall on his head and kill him." And the only possible logical thought here. So then she sat and cried with all her might, lamenting the anticipated misfortune. All the while they were upstairs waiting for something to drink, and they waited in vain. At last the mistress said to the maid, "Go down to the cellar and see why Else does not come up." So the maid went and found her sitting in front of the cask, crying with all her might. "What are you crying for?" said the maid. "Oh, dear me," answered she. "How can I help crying? If I marry Hans and we have a child, and it grows big, and we send it in here to draw beer, perhaps the pickaxe may fall on its head and kill it." "Our Else is clever indeed," said the maid, and directly sat down to bewail the anticipated misfortune. After a while, when the people upstairs found that the maid did not return, and they were becoming more and more thirsty, the master said to the boy, "You go down into the cellar and see what Else and the maid are doing." The boy did so, and there he found both clever Else and the maid sitting crying together. Then he asked what was the matter. "Oh, dear me," said Else. "How can we help crying? If I marry Hans and we have a child, and it grows big, and we send it in here to draw our beer, the pickaxe might fall on its head and kill it." "Our Else is clever indeed," said the boy, and sitting down beside her, he began howling with a good will. Upstairs they were all waiting for him to come back, but as he did not come, the master said to the mistress, "You go down to the cellar and see what Else is doing." So the mistress went down and found all three in great lamentations, and when she asked the cause, then Else told her how the future possible child might be killed as soon as it was big enough to be sent to draw beer by the pickaxe falling on it. Then the mother at once exclaimed, "Our Else is clever indeed," and, sitting down, she wept with the rest. Upstairs, the husband waited a little while, but as his wife did not return, and as his thirst constantly increased, he said, "I must go down to the cellar myself and see what has become of Else." And when he came into the cellar and found them all sitting and weeping together, he was told that it was all owing to the child that Else might possibly have, and the possibility of its being killed by the pickaxe so happening to fall just at the time as the child might be sitting underneath it drawing beer. And when he heard this, he cried, "How clever is our Else!" And sitting down, he joined his tears to theirs. The intended bridegroom stayed upstairs by himself a long time, but as nobody came back to him, he thought he would go himself and see what they were all crying about. And there he found all five lamenting and crying most pitifully, each one louder than the other. "What misfortune has happened?" cried he. "Oh, my dear Hans," said Else, "if we marry and have a child, and it grows big, and we send it down here to draw beer, perhaps that pickaxe which has been left sticking up there might fall down on the child's head and kill it, and how can we help crying at that?" "Now," said Hans, I cannot think that greater sense than that could be wanted in my household. So, as you are so clever, Else, I will have you for my wife." And taking her by the hand, he led her upstairs, and they had the wedding at once. A little while after they were married, Hans said to his wife, "I am going out to work in order to get money. You go into the field and cut the corn so that we may have bread." Yeah, I would just simply remove the pickaxe. I guess I just built over it, though. "Very well. I will do so, Hans. I will do so, dear Hans," said she. And after Hans was gone, she cooked herself some nice stew and took it with her into the field. And when she got there, she said to herself, "Now what shall I do? Shall I reap first or eat first? All right, I will eat first." Then she ate her fill of stew, and when she could eat no more, she said to herself, "Now what shall I do? Shall I reap first or sleep first? All right, I will sleep first." Then she lay down in the corn and went to sleep. And Hans got home and waited there a long while, and Else did not come, so he said to himself, "My clever Else is so industrious that she never thinks of coming home and eating." But when evening drew near and still she did not come, Hans set out to see how much corn she had cut. But she had cut no corn at all, and there she was lying asleep in it. Then Hans made haste home and fetched a bird net with little bells and threw it over her, and still she went on sleeping. And he ran home again and locked himself in and sat down on his bench to work. At last, when it was beginning to grow dark, Clever Elsa woke, and when she got up and shook herself, the bells jingled at each movement that she made. Then she grew frightened and began to doubt whether she really were Clever Elsa or not, and said to herself, "Am I, or am I not?" And, not knowing what answer to make, she stood for a long while considering, and at last she thought, "I will go home to Hans and ask him if I am or I am not. He is sure to know." So she ran up to the door of her house, but it was locked. Then she knocked at the window and cried, "Hans, is Else within?" "Yes," answered Hans, "she is in." Then she was in a greater fright than ever, and crying, "Oh dear, then I am not I." She went to inquire at another door, but the people, hearing the jingling of the bells, would not open to her, and she could get in nowhere. So she ran away beyond the village, and since then, no one has seen her. There she is with the net. And on that note, we are done for the day. Thank you. I actually would love to get into voice acting. Working on it. Trying. Anyways, that's all for today. Thank you so much for reading with me. I will put this on my YouTube channel. It's the same name as this channel. I think it's linked in my Twitch. I don't really know. I look like a lion right now. My hair is gigantic. And yeah, the Sean Hunter going on with the top layer. I will be back tomorrow. Have a great day. Thank you. Bye. I'm struggling to end these things lately. Okay, goodbye.